Hi and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are talking about Shakersort. Well, Shakersort is an algorithm that is based on bubble sort, and it is there for sorting data. Well, if you don't know about bubble sort, have a look at my bubble sort video. I blend the link in now. As usual, you will find my source code. Link is down in the description below. Alright, so as I already said, Shakersort is an algorithm for sorting data, and it is similar to bubble sort in that case that the data rises and falls like bubbles, same as in bubble sort. Well, and we run sequentially through the data, first forward and then backwards. And we usually do a compare and swap operation, and that is exactly the same as in bubble sort. It is an in-place sorting algorithm and has a worst and average time of n squared. Alright, let's have a look at an example. Well, we start with the initial list of 75, 38, 42, 1 and 10. In our first run, we will go forwards and we will compare each element with its successor and swap if the successor is greater than the actual element. So we are now at 75, we compare it to 38 and we figure we have to swap there. So we swap these two, then we look at 75 and the 42. We see 75 is greater than 42, so we have to swap. We compare the 75 and the 1, so we have to swap again. And then we compare the 75 and the 10 is smaller, so we have to swap again. In our next step, and that is a great difference to bubble sort, we have to go backwards. We don't start at the beginning again, no, we start at the end and swap again if necessary. So we run now backwards through it. So we compare the 75 and the 10. And the 10 is smaller, so we don't have to swap anything. Then we compare the 10 and the 1 is smaller, we don't have to do anything. Then we compare the 42 and the 1, the 42 is smaller, and so the 42 is greater, so we have to swap the 1 and the 42. And then we compare the 38 and the 1, and we see the 38 is greater than the 1, so we have to swap again here. Alright, in our next step, we are now in our second run and we go now forwards again. So, we look now at our data, we compare the 1 and the 38. The 38 is greater, so we don't have to do anything. The same when we compare the 38 and the 42. Now we compare the 42 with the 10 and we see we have to make a swap there because the 10 is smaller. And then we compare the 42 and the 75 and we see the 42 is smaller, so we don't have to swap there. And then we do the same also in our backwards run. That should be the second run there, not the third. So we start now at the 75 compared with the 42 and go back, and we don't swap unless we compare the 38 and the 10. So there we have to swap these two, and then we compare the 10 with the 1 and we don't have to do a swap there. In our last run, we would run once through it, see we don't have to swap anything anymore. And since we don't swap, we are done and we can finish our sorting algorithm. Alright, let's implement that in Python. For that, I open my Visual Studio Code and I create a new file called shakersort.python. And in that I want to import at first NumPy because we will use it here for generating random numbers. Import NumPy as np, and then we need our array length that we want to, or that will be the array we generate as random numbers. We will need a rand min as the minimum of our random numbers. I take the 1 here. and we need a rand max, which will be 100, just as a maximum number we generate. Alright, and then we can create our array, and that will be an mp.random.randint, and there we have our mint, that is min, our rand max, and we give it also our size, and that is array length. Alright, the next step is that I want to implement the swap method. Since this algorithm is in place, so we don't need extra space for it, we don't need a result array. So at first I create now the swap method, and I will do it with an XOR swap. So that is an in-place swap. I blend the video to that in here. I made a great video on that, so have a look at that. That is also a question often asked in programming interviews. So here def swap, and that gets our array and our indices to swap. And here I say swaps the index I with index j of array r. And it does that with a call by reference. So what we need to do is here array I equals to array I XOR array j, and then we do this 3 times, just that we say here array j is equal to that, and here we say array I is equal to that again, and that is already our XOR swap. As I said, have a look at the video. Then we need to implement our forwards run. So we say def forwards run, and there I just give it the array. So here we say performs a forwards run of Shakersort, and that is in case our normal bubble sort, where we go in and say for our I in range, and there we need array length -1. So since we compare it always to our successor, and our range is exclusive the greater interval, we have to use -1 there. Okay, so we go in and say if our array I is greater than our array I plus 1, then we have to do a swap there. We do swap, and we want array I and I plus 1. And also I want to memorize if I swapped. So I say here swapped equals true for now. No, swapped equals false. And then I go in here and say swapped equals true. And once we are done with it, we are also done with our forward swap, and I just want to return swapped in the end. Alright, let's do now our backwards run. And again, we give it our array, and we say here performs a backwards run of Shakersort, which is basically a bubble sort run just backwards. So we say again swapped equals false, because we will store that in the end. And here we go, return swapped And then we go in and say for I in range. And now we want to start with the last element of our array, and there we say that is array length. But since the lower limit is always included in the range method, we have to use -1 here. And then we want to go to 1 because we compare it with our predecessor. And then we want a step size of -1. And then we go in and say if array, and there I say I. And now we have to think about when we have to swap that, and that is if our element is smaller than our predecessor. So is smaller than array I -1. Then we say swap array I and I -1. And we say swapped equals true here. And then we return our swapped. Alright, so now we just need to go in and perform that as long as we swap something. So at first I presume that we swapped, so I want another variable outside here, and I call that swap2, and I say swapped equals true. And then I say while not swapped. So if we don't swap in our forwards run or in our backwards run, then we stop. And I want also another method or another variable that tells us what we currently do, a forwards or backwards run. So I say here forward equals true. Let's say forwards. And then we go in here and say we perform a forwards run. So swapped let's go in and make an if case. If we do forwards, if forwards, then we do our forwards run. So here forwards run of our array. And otherwise, then we are not forwards, so we have to do our backwards run. Swapped equals backwards run of our array. And then we can say here forwards, because we swap the directions, equals not forwards. And with that we should be done. So let's run it and see if it works. And we also have to print here our array. And let's print up here our array too, just that we have the comparison. And then we run it. And as you can see, the array was not swapped. Alright, and we have a little error here still in our while method, and we say here while not swapped, so we actually never go into that. And I also saw that we have here a little error in our for loop, because here the 1 is actually the outer or the further right end of our interval, so that is not included. We have to use 0 here for letting it work properly. So let's run it now. And as you see, it works completely fine as it is supposed to be. And let's run it maybe 2 more times to see that it really works. And these tries all look good. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you find the source code down in the description below. If you liked that video, give it a thumbs up and tell me down in the comments below what you think about the video. Alright, Yeah, subscribe to the channel if you always want to get informed whenever I'm uploading new videos. And apart from that, have a great day. Bye.